Hello everybody, my name is King Noosme. I had a suggestion in my comments to talk about the Spy Kids franchise, and I love that idea. I loved the Spy Kids movies as a kid. They're even better now that I get more of the jokes. There's a lot of adult jokes in these movies. For those of you that don't know, Spy Kids is a family action adventure movie series made by director and writer Robert Rodriguez. The first film was made in 2001 and it follows the siblings Juni and Carmen, who found out that their parents aren't who they say they are. But we'll talk more about that later. The success of the first film led to several sequels, including Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams, made in 2002, Spy Kids 3D, Game Over, made in 2003, and a fourth movie that was made 8 years later in 2011 called Spy Kids All the Time in the World, with two new kids named, what are their names? With two new kids named Cecil and Rebecca. And then another movie that released just last year with two more new kids, Patty and Tony. They're getting quite uncreative with these names here lately. It's also made a couple spin-off movies like Sharkboy and Lavagirl, and a Netflix show called Let's Be Heroes that stars the original Lavagirl and Pedro Pascal. What the fuck? But today we're going to be talking about the original Spy Kids movie that was made in 2001, the same year I was born. This movie is just as old as me. We start the movie by meeting one of our main characters, Carmen, as she's looking longingly out the window. And she's the older sister to Juni, the other main character in this movie, who has a wart problem on his hands. No, like literally the warts are like on his hands, like seriously. But it's bedtime for them, so their mom tucks them into bed and tells them a little bedtime story. She tells them a story about two spies, a man and a woman, that were on the opposite sides of war. The woman was assigned to take out the man, and not like on a date, like. So she stalked the man for a few days and followed him to his hotel. And when she came face to face with him, she couldn't do it. And we learned that he was also assigned to kill her. She found the man very charming and chivalrous and honorable. And she realized that in that moment, she had fallen in love with him. So the two went on dates from a distance. They were still at war. And soon they got married. And the day of the wedding, she's so nervous that she karate chops an ice sculpture in half. She was nervous about the whole thing until she saw her husband standing there. He seemed so sure in his decision, and it calmed her down. And everything went perfectly until they said, "I do." Agents start attacking them because now they are both high-value targets. I love the parachutes, by the way. They swiftly escape and they kiss on the way out, and they had a kid and retired. And if you haven't figured this out yet, this is the story about the mom and the dad of the movie, Ingrid and Gregorio, who were spies, but they're now just consultants for the agency, which are like spies but without the fun stuff. We learn that the kids aren't doing very well in school. Carmen is skipping class a lot, and Juni gets bullied and has no friends. Gregorio seems to think it's because of this show Floop's Fooglies, and it's the reason why Juni is not making very many friends. Ingrid thinks that the kids are keeping secrets from them because they somehow know that they're lying to them about being spies. But Gregorio assures her,
if we told them we were spies, they'd have visions of danger every time we leave the house.
Suddenly, 3 missing people show up on Gregorio's computer, and it looks like he's keeping secrets of his own. Cut to the kids playing on this really cool jungle gym. I wanted this thing so bad when I was a kid. Juni is having trouble with the monkey bars because his hands are so sweaty, and Carmen decides she's gonna help him by giving him a little push. And that's the kind of comedy we have for the rest of this movie. This understandably pisses Juni off. Well, that and the plethora of nicknames that Carmen has for him. So Juni tries to kill his sister. Literally. Luckily, he misses. That one could have been very bad, very, very bad. Next, the parents are taking the kids to school when we get to see a glimpse of this show that Gregorio was talking about. It's quite a psychedelic show with these creatures called Fooglies in it, and the host's name, which is Fegan Floop. Gregorio questions Juni about why he watches the show, and all Juni has to say is,
because it's cool.
And of course, Gregorio tries to lecture him about watching TV too much and playing video games too much, but he might as well not be there because all Juni can hear is Floop say,
So always remember, whatever you do, believe in yourself.
But this gets interrupted by Carmen asking Juni if this bad drawing is a self-portrait. And Juni's comeback is to just mimic her.
Mommy's mimicking me! Mommy's mimicking me!
Like he's really good at mimicking people. After a bit more family bickering, Gregorio notices that one of the Fooglies looks suspiciously like one of his missing people. And by suspicious, I mean their eyes look the same, right? Like, a little bit, I guess. He's also got a dump truck, damn! They make it to the school and Gregorio sees Juni getting bullied by this kid. And he tries to step in, but the kid's dad steps up to Gregorio and says,
Can I help you with something, macho?
He then tries to attack Gregorio, but he's just too fast and strong, so he reverses the attack and throws him through a window. And as this happened, all the kids cheer and Juni runs back to his dad, giving him a big hug, telling him he's super proud. Is what Gregorio wanted to happen, but what actually happened was this.
Can I help you with something, Chief?
While they're in school, Carmen is talking to her friend about how much she hates babysitting her little brother. And sadly, Juni overhears her talking about this. I don't know how she didn't see him like standing there. He was like right out of the line of sight, like he was like directly in front of you. This makes Juni a little sad, and he asks himself,
What's so special about being a Cortez?
this is when he wishes he could live with Floop, and then suddenly we learn that Floop has been tasked by a few government officials to use his creative mind to make an army of undefeatable soldiers. And so far he's used $1 billion, and he only has 4 Fooglies. He tells the inventors that this won't happen again, these were just tests, and the machine accidentally changed them into mutants. And the brain wipe that they use for them accidentally turned their brains into mush, so he just uses them for little characters in his show.
Currently rated number two.
Which is like a huge accomplishment. I mean, like, good luck beating Sesame Street, pal. Like, you're not gonna do that. Number 2's great. But Floop doesn't seem to like that fact about his show. We also learned that he's made another robot army called Thumb Thumbs that are very skilled. Oh, they're all thumbs. Yeah, I stole that joke from the movie. I'm a fraud. But the thumbs aren't what he's been working on. It's time to show the investors what he has really been working on. The doors slide open and it shows a kid running down the hallway. And not just any kid. This guy's kid.
Johnny?
By the way, this is Agent Lisp. He's kind of important. But ironically, he doesn't have a lisp. Oh wait, that's funny. Obviously, Lisp doesn't like this idea at first, but with a little bit of persuasion, Floop gets Agent Lisp on his side. He's sold on the invention of
Spy Kids.
But before he buys the kids, he asks them one question.
What are 4 of the 5 physiological indications that a human being is lying?
And they answer with, yeah, it turns out these ones are just prototypes. And they're missing their brain. Needless to say, Lisp isn't too happy about this fact, and he gives Floop 2 days to make an army with brains, or he'll take everything from Floop, even his cool castle, and the show. So now Floop just has to make them work. Come back to the Cortez's house. After 9 years, Gregorio has decided to accept an assignment. 7 agents have gone missing, including someone that he's very close with. And there's been no ransom, no demands, they've just disappeared. Ingrid isn't too happy about this fact until he tells her that the director of the OSS himself asked him to do it. Then she changes her mood quite quickly and asks if she can go with him.
I'm going with you.
Ingrid.
But Gregorio tells her no, she has to stay back with the kids. What if something goes wrong? But she rizzes him up a little bit. And of course it works.
Ingrid.
I think he busted. So Uncle Felix is gonna watch the kids till they get back. Gregorio puts on a masterful disguise. Like, I couldn't even tell it was him. And Ingrid changes into her old outfit too. I think he busted again. They get the coordinates to where the company believes the agents are. And it looks like they have to do a little off-roading for this trip. This is one of the coolest gadgets I've seen in this franchise. I love the scuba car. I think it's so cool. I've always wanted a car submarine, especially as a kid. Especially as a kid, I wanted a car submarine. On the way, Ingrid is a little nervous about the kids, but Gregorio quickly calms her down just before they get a call by a girl that also gets interrupted by Floop's Fooglies, which looks like an accident, but this was no accident. Floop calls them out by name.
And you, Gregorio and Ingrid Cortez.
Before Ingrid turns around and sees that they've been followed. Gregorio tries to escape by giving the car some gas, but it's no use. Back home, an alarm goes off, waking Uncle Felix up from a nap and confusing the kids.
Is this a fire drill?
Uncle Felix gives them some backpacks and tells them to follow him into the safe house. And we also learn that he's not their uncle? Damn it, that's a good disguise. How do they keep getting away with that? He was assigned to protect the Cortez family, and right now something is very wrong, if you cannot tell. Uncle Felix tries to explain to them what's going on about their parents being a spy and stuff, but Carmen just seems to not believe that her parents are spies. That is until Felix opens a door that she didn't know was there. Felix leads them to an emergency exit, but before he can leave with them, he has something he needs to do. So he tells the kids to get inside and wait for him, and if he takes too long, just leave without him. Felix walks around the house grabbing random things when someone gives him a little visit. Felix tells the kids to just go ahead and leave without him, but before they leave, he gives them a little message.
The third brain lives.
Before getting taken over by the intruders. Carmen runs out, grabs a device that shows them coordinates to the safe house, and Juni almost leaves them behind. They make it out, but they almost immediately start getting chased by the vigilantes that took Uncle Felix. And Juni is panicking, so he accidentally puts the sub into manual mode. And now they'll have to manually get away from these bad guys and somehow make it to the safe house, which they don't know how to do. They didn't even know how to start it. And after a few donuts around this poor fisherman, the kids accidentally jump over him, which was insanely lucky, but now Juni is hanging off the side of the submarine. And in pulling him back in, they accidentally re-engage the autopilot, which saves their life because there's a whole island waiting to kill them. These guys weren't so lucky. But now we cut back to the parents. They're forced to give everything they have on them and be prisoners to Floop. And on their way to the jail cell, they see that all the Fooglies are also prisoners. Floop wants to use the Cortez family to get to the brain because somebody knows where it is. And they need the brain for their army. And before the kids, the Cortezes were tough nuts. They didn't have any weaknesses, but now they have two. I also stole that one from the movie. I'm a fraud. After a couple of hours, the kids actually make it to the safe house. It looks like Juni was having a boring time while Carmen just slept the whole time. How did she do that? But they make it there and it doesn't look very interesting on the outside. But the inside, however, looks really cool. The kids explore the safe house a little bit. Carmen finds some really cool food. Like, I want that. I just want McDonald's to instantly pop up in front of me. And Juni finds some jetpacks by a man named Machete. But we'll get to him in a bit. We cut back to the parents who are still tied up in the basement and still worried about the kids.
They still wear diapers.
Only one is in diapers and only at night. It's not that unusual, okay?
Bro, Juni is old enough to go to school and he still wears diapers? That's kind of embarrassing. After a bit of arguing between the two, Ingrid actually uses her wedding ring that's actually a laser to cut out of the ropes. They start looking around the building for Floop and whoever captured them win. But Gregorio isn't scared of a little jump, so he backs up a little bit and jumps and... oh no. Oh, it's fake. They stumble into a room called the Virtual Room that's actually just a trap to get them to meet Floop. Floop sits them down and tells them his plan to use synthetic intelligence to take over the world, which the OSS was also working on a few years ago, but they've destroyed all evidence of it. But Floop somehow knows that Gregorio was part of that research team, and so he knows how to rebuild the brains. But when Greg doesn't say anything, he shows them how he gets his Fooglies by using Uncle Felix and some clay. Ew, why'd they fuck him up so bad? But he still doesn't comply to Floop's demands and gets thrown back into the jail cell. Next, we get a cool suit-up scene with the kids, and they also read up on how to be a spy until there's a knock at the door. A totally unsuspicious lady named Mrs. Gradenko is there to get them. Her and a few goons invite themselves in, and goons as in like bad guys, not goons as in whatever the fuck it means now. It's so nasty, I hate that. She tricks the kids into thinking that she's a secret agent that works with her parents, and she tells them that the last message that was sent was F-L-O-O-P, which Juni understands right away. And Juni just doesn't want to believe that his favorite actor is a bad guy. And they show us that the gibberish that they speak is actually just high-pitched and played backwards. Wait, what does it actually play? Yo, that's so cool. What the fuck? I actually feel really bad for Juni. Just imagine like your favorite childhood TV host was like a weird, creepy dude. I could never understand those feelings. But after all this information, Carmen actually trusts Grindenko. She trusts her enough to tell her the secret code.
The third brain lives.
I think she busted. This is when she gets a special bracelet that makes her an official member of the OSS, which pisses Juni off, but then he accidentally reveals the third brain, just before they realize the people aren't there to help them.
Oh no.
Grindenko takes the third brain, and the kids find some really cool guns to fight them off.
You don't even know what those things are.
I know they're heavy.
So they just start like throwing things at each other until one of the dudes that has the brain gets away. But luckily for us, Carmen has the most insane luck in the world and somehow catches up to this guy. Or maybe Juni has a lot of luck because he somehow wins a fight against Grindenko and a few henchmen. This dude is like 6, and he wins by catching her hair on fire. Carmen grabs the brain from the guy and saves Juni from the tunnels because he was stuck inside of them, and they make their way out. Most of this movie is really good about, laying everything out pretty well, making it look nice, but this scene was there was so much going on, and there's literally like just random cuts. Like this whole jetpack scene was just giving me whiplash. Like she was one place and then she teleported to another place. Don't know, and there's no time and how she got there. It was just like bang, 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 like a nonstop. The kids escape the thumbs by hiding in a clothes store where the adults don't seem to see what's happening. That or they just don't care about what's happening. And the kids are smart enough to trick the dumb thumbs into thinking that they're actually inside this clothes rack when they're not. And they escape scot-free. Then we get a banger from Floop himself. And while singing this, he realizes that he's not happy about his show. He wants to be the #1 kids show in the world, but he just needs to figure out what his show is missing. Minion reminds him that right now he needs to focus on the mission, not his show. But Floop doesn't care about that. The mission is just blocking Floop from using his creative abilities to be #1. And this is when Minion tells Floop that they found the third brain.
It exists completely.
But sadly, they lost the kids. Sad for them, but good for us. They also reveal how they're going to find the kids.
Send a child.
The kids go to a nearby park and they start trying to track Floop's castle down, but they're having trouble. This is when Carmen figures out that the little tracker they're using is made by their uncle Machete, who they've never met. And while she's working on trying to fix that, Juni realizes that they're coming for the third brain and it must be destroyed. But before he can smash it,
What are you doing?
Carmen tells him that they need to keep it to get their parents back. And she also alludes to the fact that she's having issues with her parents lying to her this whole time about being spies.
How do you know what they want? Until this morning, you didn't even know who they were.
But Carmen isn't the only one smart enough to realize that something's wrong. Juni points out that the bracelet that she got from Grandenko is probably a tracker, and she doesn't like that Juni is calling her out like that, so she just calls him a few mean names and then walks away to find out that, he was right.
Booger was right. I hate that.
Right after this, Juni and Carmen both get attacked by robot versions of themselves. This is when Carmen finally tells Juni to destroy the brain. But Robo Carmen won't let that happen, and she just tries to kill him. While the actual Carmen finds out that these guys are a little bit harder to beat than she thought they were going to be. Robo Carmen throws Juni onto a merry-go-round and spins him at about Mach 35. And then she hops on and slowly approaches him in one of the coolest scenes in this movie. I love this scene. I don't know about you guys. And while she's doing this, he's smashing the brain on the ground, trying to destroy it, but he's having no luck. Sadly, Robo Carmen gets the brain and they fly away. But luckily for us, Juni snagged her necklace. That reveals to the kids that Floop is building a pretty big army. We cut back to the parents and Gregorio is telling the story about the brains. There are multiple iterations of the brain, but they finally got to get it to work in the third iteration, which was his. And when they tested it, they realized that it was too dangerous for the real world. So they were ordered to destroy all brains and all evidence of it. But Gregorio couldn't destroy it, or he didn't want to. Obviously. The kids make it to Machete's place, which is very low-key and totally not obvious. That was sarcasm, by the way. The shop is called Machete's Spy Shop. So it's either the worst hiding place ever or the best. And Machete is played by Danny Trejo, which is another massive W for this movie. An absolute legend. I love it. They walk in on him making the world's smallest camera.
I don't see it.
But it sees you.
Carmen tells Machete that she needs something to help them save their parents. And his response to them is,
You will turn around. You will leave my shop.
apparently Gregorio and Machete are not on the best terms. Yikes. Floop is getting more Spy Kids ready for the presentation, and while he's doing this, all he can think about is his show. This is when Floop confesses that he never really cared about the mission. It was never his dream to take over the world, it was Minion's dream to take over the world. So Juni was right, Floop really isn't a bad guy. But you know who is?
I now have the third brain. I don't need you anymore.
That's right, Minion was behind it the whole time. Bet you didn't see that one coming. And now he doesn't need Floop anymore, so he just locks him in the virtual room to be virtualized forever. And it looks like the kids actually got Machete to change his mind a little bit on helping them. And they somewhat interrogate him, but he just doesn't talk. But we do get to learn a little bit about Machete and their dad. We learn that they had a big fight because Machete would sell spy gadgets to both sides of the war. And he might have also had a hand on helping build Floop's castle. The kids tell him that Floop has his parents prisoner and that they need his help to get around the castle. But he still doesn't want to help them in. But he does show them this really fast, cool secret agent jet that's on the roof. And it would get them to Floop's castle pretty quick. But he still won't go out of his way to help his brother, no matter how many times they ask him to. Later that night, Juni and Carmen whip out their glow sticks, literally. And they steal a bunch of gadgets from Machete. Look at the tiny lightsaber. Aww. To help them save their parents, and including the map to Floop's castle.
It's just a reflex.
And Carmen tasks Juni to read the manual so that he can fly the jet all the way to the castle. So the kids go through with their plan and they make it out. And you'd think that this would anger Machete, but I think this was secretly a test to see if they were ready to be spy kids, because he just laughed and smiled as they flew away. On the way to Floop's castle, the autopilot of the jet fails, and we learn that Juni did not read the manual after all. This pisses Carmen off, so she starts calling him mean names, which in turn pisses Juni off, so he calls her a mean name. And he says something that she will never forget.
Diaper lady.
Oh, Carmen was the one in the diapers. And suddenly, they lose a wing, and then the other, and then the landing gear. And in another huge stroke of luck, they somehow still make it to Floop's castle. So they put on some scuba gear, and they emergency escape to the waters nearby. They find a secret tunnel to the castle, and when they make their way inside, they meet their first challenge, which Carmen takes out with ease using this electrified gumball. Another quick suit up and the kids run through the halls, and while they're running around, Juni places tiny cameras everywhere he can. This is when he spots the Fooglies getting guided down one of the hallways. So they get some much needed information while the Thumb Thumbs are a little distracted. They found out that their parents are locked in the dungeon, so they just need to make it to the other side of the castle somehow without getting caught. Luckily, they're kids, so they can just get in line with the other spy kids and blend in. Uh-oh. So they decide to do a smart thing and run away. This is where they run into the same problem that their parents had earlier. Luckily, we know that it's just a false floor, so they can just jump right across it and... Oh. That's not good. Juni somehow finds his way into the virtual room where he meets Floop, and where Floop asks him...
What's that on your hands?
He makes fun of Juni for having warts on his hands and being scared all the time. But Juni isn't scared anymore. He's mad that Floop lied to him, stole his parents and his sister, but Floop confesses that
I didn't want any of that.
And Juni tells him that he used to love his show until he found out he was a bad guy, which Floop obviously loves to hear. So it looks like they have a little bit of bonding they need to do. Cut to the parents where it's revealed that Gregorio actually worked with Minion to create the brain. And Gregorio actually turned him in when he felt that Minion was being a little too suspicious. Minion shows him the picture that Juni drew from earlier in the movie and sets it down and straps Gregorio to the Foogly machine. But before we can see the Foogly form, it cuts to Minion talking to Agent Lisp. He tells Lisp that Floop is away on business and that the army is now ready for him. And not only is Agent Lisp coming, Agent Gradenko is oh my god, what happened to her hair? Well, if he thinks she's beautiful, I guess. Floop tells Juni about everything, about the mission and about Minion, and that he's going to get blamed for everything that happens in the world. He also tells Juni that if he could get out of this virtual prison, then he would totally help him get Minion and stop him. And he hopes that the world can find a way to forgive him. This is when Juni uses another one of those electric gumballs to free Floop. But before he releases him, Floop asks,
My show. What does it need?
And Juni replies with,
It needs children.
and then he releases Floop and they can go stop Minion. Carmen falls all the way to the Thumb Thumb factory, where she finds an opportunity to blend in. And it works for a little while, but sadly the first person she runs into is Juni.
This one's for my sister! Hola.
I think that little Ola is so cute. It makes me giggle.
Hola.
I love it. The kids find their parents locked inside the basement, and they sadly get to see their dad's Foogly form. Wow, they really did not try on this costume. I mean, it does look exactly like their drawing, but I expected it to be like a little more 3D. Carmen tells her mom about everything she's been doing, about skipping school so she can explore the city.
Running off to Belize.
What? You went where?
How did she make it to Belize? She's 12. So Minion and Agent Lisp meet up so they can talk about the new Spy Kid robots. And all is going well until... Uh-oh, but he told them Floop was away on business. Minion tries to find Floop throughout the castle, but it turns out
Behind you.
he was looking for the wrong person. This is when Juni copies Minion's voice just in time for this guy to show up. Who's this guy? Oh, it's the dad. Dang, that mustache thing really works. The family take Minion and strap him down to the Foogly machine and turn him into a Foogly themselves. But he doesn't seem too upset about this. The next plan is to get to the control room so they can shut the Spy Kids down. And if they don't, and the kids make it outside, then there'll be no way to stop them. And luckily, they make it to the room pretty easily. Well, the kids make it to the room at least.
Where's Mom and Dad?
And it looks like they're a little late to shut them down. You can tell because the screens say too late on the computer, so I think it's too late. Carmen offers that they just reprogram all the robots.
Just 2 words.
A binary switch, of course.
So they leave it to Floop to reprogram all the robots while they go save their parents. And on their way to save the parents, they run into themselves. And unlike getting into the room, this isn't going to be easy. Carmen robot insults Juni and even shows us a bit of her robot strength. And this is when real Carmen tells him about how important he is, how helpful he is, how strong he is, and it kinda gets to his head a little bit.
You're not that strong, Juni.
And it looks like the kids have been captured and everything's over for them until Juni is chewing on yet another electro gumball, which completely turns to tides and helps them escape. The parents get dropped into the main room where all the big bad guys are talking, and we see that Minion's looking a little bit different. Anyways, they're going to be examples for the Spy Kids to show, so they're just going to be piñatas for these kids to beat the shit out of. But the kids aren't going to let them get beat alone. Oh my god, that's a lot of robot kids. How are they going to fight 500 robot kids with just 4 people? Gregorio offers that each of them take 100 kids, but that still leaves 100 to fight. So who's gonna help them fight the last 100? I knew he'd come around. And just before the kids attack them, Floop figures out how to switch the binary code. It was 3 buttons. So the kids literally just run past them and then start tossing the bad guys in the air. Like actually just tossing them in the air. And now after many years, Gregorio and Machete can actually talk about why they were fighting.
I don't remember that reason.
Neither do I.
Really? Really? At least this part is sweet. Floop and Juni have a little heart-to-heart moment where Floop tells Juni that the reason why they won today is because Juni is so pure of heart and pure of mind. He was smart enough and had a big enough heart to help them win. And he has inspired Floop to do better. The family comes home to find that the Spy Kid robots that escaped are actually now helping people because they don't know how to be bad. They can only be good. And Carmen and Juni are now on Floop's Fooglies. Well, the robot version of them is. And the very last thing we see in this movie is a call from Devlin. And he's calling to give them another mission. But not the parents, no. Carmen and Juni get a mission, but they're not gonna do it without their parents and Machete. And we end the movie with a sweet family huddle and credits. What a great movie. Actually fun movie to watch. When I make these videos, I have to watch the movie multiple times, and this one never got boring, so that's a huge plus. Some of these movies I watched can get quite boring. Avalon High. I don't want to name names, Avalon High, but they get kind of boring. Avalon High. I think it's a really sweet movie. I love watching this movie. It's a good feel-good movie, and you can never be sad after watching this movie. Let me know what you think about Spy Kids in the comments below. Also, let me know what other goofy movies or TV shows you want to see me talk about. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll rate this movie an 8. I'm taking the number up a little bit. I usually say 7, but this one's an 8. I like this movie a lot. Like the video if you like the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace.